Welcome to Right on Track, a songwriting podcast. Thanks to Tone for tuning in. I'm Demi Michelle Schwartz, and I'm thrilled you're joining me on my songwriting journey. So kick back and relax, don't fall flat, and remember, stay right on track. Hello everyone, welcome back to Right on Track. I am so honored to be joined by a very special guest today, Sebastian Javier. I have been a fan of his music for quite a while and caught him on a few of his tours here in Pittsburgh, and now he's joining me on the show to talk all about songwriting. So please welcome Sebastian.
Hello, hi, how are you?
I'm great, how are you?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Awesome.
It's getting nice out in Canada finally. It's been so cold for the past couple months.
Oh
so,
yeah, I know, I feel.
Happy to have some sun.
Yeah, today actually it's beautiful out, so I've been outside like all afternoon and then just ran inside to record this, but we've been getting nice weather here and I'm really excited for summer. Do you have any fun summer plans so far?
Yeah, actually, I finally got my license, my driver's license. Because ever since I was 16, I've toured so much and all that I couldn't really find the time to properly set, a frame to study and get good at driving. So anyway, I got my license. So I'll be doing a lot of driving. I think we're going to go to New York City for my birthday and Montreal maybe and a bunch of other camping stuff. It'll be fun.
Yeah, sounds fun.
Excited.
Sounds super fun. Yeah, I would be too. So I'm so excited you're joining me to talk all about songwriting. So before we dive into all of this, can you just share with everyone how you got started in music and maybe some of your favorite highlights from your journey so far?
Well, I'd say, I've always loved to sing since I was a kid, but when I moved to Canada at 12, I'm from Argentina, and I moved to Toronto, Canada when I was 12 years old, and I started making YouTube videos, and initially I didn't really feel very confident singing on videos, so I talked a lot, but as time went on, I felt more comfortable online, and I started to post some covers, and that's kind of where showcasing my singing ability or whatever you want to call it really started. And yeah, that kicked off for a little while. And I made a YouTube channel called That Spanish Boy, and I had vlogs and I had covers and things started to pick up. And I went to a MagCon Toronto. I did a little show with Sean and all those guys, and that was my first ever sort of performance of any sort where I was in person, because I lived online for so long before then. So that was probably when I was 14, 15, and it's just been a ride. I mean, I've done a lot of tours. I've done so many. I've gone to Europe many times and gotten the chance to perform there. I've done a lot of shows in the States and in Canada and in South America. I could go on for a while, but you asked me a highlight. I have two highlights in my life so far when it comes to performing. I'd say the first one, doing a festival in Spain, Madrid, when I was 17. I did it with Megan Trainor and B. Miller in front of 25,000 people, and that was the most amount of people I've ever performed to, which was overwhelming and very nerve-wracking. And another highlight I'd say is being able to go back to my hometown in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and doing a sold-out headline show there. It was really fulfilling for me to be able to go back home and perform.
That's fabulous. You've had quite the journey so far, and along with all this performing, you've been writing a lot as well. So what do you think your favorite thing about being a songwriter is?
I think just being able to create a story, and I think that's really it. Just being able to create something, I think is really fulfilling to sit down in a room, with people that you trust, and sometimes just on your own, and be able to portray an emotion or a story that you're feeling might connect with people, or a story that just connects with you, and being able to, have created this thing that you can now listen back to. I think that's the most special thing about it.
For sure. Yeah, isn't it so beautiful when you get an idea for a song, either alone or with co-writers, and you basically take nothing, you basically take silence and turn it into a song that you can relate to and that others can relate to. It's such a beautiful process.
Yeah, no, it really is. Yeah, sometimes it can definitely be tough, and sometimes it doesn't come naturally as
Yeah.
other times, but it's really fulfilling to create anything. Music, especially for me, yes,
Yeah.
it's very important.
Absolutely. Okay, cool. So let's shift gears a little bit, and we have a great quote by Paul Simon. So can you read that?
It's very helpful to start with something that's true. If you start with something that's false, you're always covering your tracks. Something simple and true that has a lot of possibilities is a nice way to begin.
This is amazing. So why does this quote resonate with you?
Because I'm always a fan of truth. I'm always a fan of following your, intuition in anything you state. And I think that, especially in songwriting, to really create an honest song, I think it's really important to be vulnerable and be honest. And, if you come from a place that, that comes from your heart, then that that song, everything will really come easily and naturally. And that's, yeah, it really resonated with me.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think sometimes we can get caught up in what is popular and what people like and what's trending and all those things. And it's really hard to not let ourselves kind of fall down those traps because we think, oh, if we write this kind of song, maybe it will be popular. But I completely agree with what this quote is saying. This quote is saying something truly great that, just start from something that's true and then everything else will follow after that. And if you want to connect with your audience, being authentic is always the way to go. So I'm completely on board with this as well. But for you, other than this honesty and truth in your songwriting, what are some other things that you personally keep in mind while you're writing?
I think, I always have the audience in mind. Sometimes I try to focus on the writing itself, but that, it always comes to mind in the process, just thinking about how will people react to whatever is created. So I do think sometimes when choosing a story to pursue in writing, I do think, are people going to resonate with this? Is there anything I can add here to be more neutral about the situation? Because I think from my perspective, my goal is for people to listen to a song and be able to connect with it in their own way. And I think sometimes it's nice to not be so specific and be a little more broad with situations so that anybody can listen and feel connected right away. But again, other times it's always really nice to be specific, and that creates some unique songs that really do stand out. But yeah, I think just keeping the audience in mind is really special for me. And I think always, whenever I even have a demo of a song going on a drive and listening, I think, because again, I think driving and listening, when you're driving, I think is when people listen to music maybe the most sometimes. So it's always really nice to have that perspective as well and think, okay, what else do I need to add on here,
Yeah,
to
for
make it
sure.
resonate.
I love that. I love how you kind of brought up the balance between doing something that's personal to you and that's true to you while also keeping your audience in mind. And I think that's just creating the balance of personal and universal. And that's something we always have to keep in mind, not trying to be too specific where it's so specific to your life that others can't relate, but not being too broad where it's not rooted in your life. So finding that balance is so important. So, something I wanted to chat with you about that is really interesting is that you write and release music both in English and Spanish. And I'm sure this is really special and important to you. So, can you share a little bit about your journey of writing in both languages and maybe some favorite moments from doing this?
Yeah, it's been a very interesting process. I think a lot of the songs that have come out in Spanish were initially written in English. I find when it comes to English music, it's much easier to translate directly to Spanish. I do find with Spanish music, it's very versatile, and the melody and the way that words sound are very, very tough to then translate to English. So it's been really interesting to have that chance to take an English song and add some Spanish, even, aside of course the lyrics, just the vibe, changing a little bit of the production and making it suit that language itself. But it's been a very interesting experience. Yeah, right before COVID, I went on a writing trip. So I went to LA for about 2 weeks, or no, actually 3, 4 weeks actually, and then I went to Miami for 2 weeks. And we split up. Most of the writing in LA was English. Most of the writing in Miami was Spanish, and I really got a good sense of where I felt, true to myself and where things didn't feel right. It's very overwhelming to be able to speak in both languages and have the ability to create in both, because sometimes I find myself in this conflict where I don't know in which direction to go because I love both languages so much in their own way, you know. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot to do with it. There's
Yeah. No,
a
that's
billion different
awesome.
ways to do it. Yeah, it's been fun though.
So, when you're writing in, both languages and releasing both styles of songs, do you find that this expands your fan base because you can have English speaking fans and also Spanish speaking fans?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's kind of a battle that I'm you know in the middle of kind of figuring out. I'd say is where does a translation fit and where is it a forced thing. I think Spanish fans, when listening to a Spanish song, I mean, they understand the heart that comes with it, and sometimes a song might not really fit in Spanish at all, but it's just a forced translation. So I think, well, yes, I mean, I think it's definitely expanded a much bigger fan base, actually, especially with Pretend. What I found interesting was when I would post teasers of the song. The song is just in English, but having people know that I'm from Argentina, and whenever I'm posting these videos, even including the translation right below the English text, fans really resonated, and a lot of new people that would speak Spanish really would resonate with English music, knowing, I think, especially that I am from Argentina, because maybe some sense of the vibe in the song they feel has some Latin to it. So, yeah, absolutely, it's expanded it massively, I'd say.
Yeah, I think that's super cool because there's like some other artists I can think of that like Ali Brooke does some in English and Spanish, so does Selena Gomez. And like me personally, like I learned Spanish in school, so like I understand it quite a bit. And so I like actually like to listen to Spanish songs. Like yours, Seguridad Key is one of my favorites of yours, and it's in Spanish. And so I think it's really cool how, you kind of see your fans in both, Spanish and English, but connecting to their songs no matter what language they're in.
Yeah, absolutely. That's cool. You like that song. I love that song
It's
so much.
so good.
Yeah.
I love it. So you mentioned pretend, and that's a perfect transition because I wanted to kind of talk about some things you noticed in yourself as a growing songwriter from your first single, Nobody But Us, to Pretend. So you released a lot of music between there. Have you seen some specific things in your own style or writing process that have changed over the course of these last few years?
Yeah, I think I've become a lot more connected with myself and my emotion. I think growing up, yeah, since I was 12, just being online and always being just away from home and traveling, I kind of felt like I lost part of myself. And I feel like at that age is when you should be finding out who you are. So I find now when I approach songwriting, I have a lot more honesty and a lot more truth to speak and to write about. I just because I feel so connected with myself. When before I would write a song because just I liked the story and I never felt connected to it. I find with a lot of my older music, the connections that I have aren't the meaning behind them, but the memories that I've had performing them, which is interesting. Where now the songs that I've released ever since Bad for Me, ever since I signed this record deal with Elektra, all these songs come from a place of truth in my life.
That's incredible. Do you think it also has something to do with while you were starting songwriting, you were still exploring the craft? And so, because you were doing that, you weren't digging deep in yourself. But now that you've been writing for a while, you're allowing yourself to go deeper. Do you think that's the case?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, for me, I find that in order to really find yourself, I don't know, for me, finding myself deeper has been all about meditation and all about, what's the word? Spirituality. And that's been my truth. So now learning all of these things, reading all these books about the importance of being present has then connected me deeper with myself. I think if I would have kept writing without finding that within myself, I think I wouldn't have found the truth in me, I guess. That makes sense. But I now that I've really grown a lot in the past couple of years, that's when I've grown personally, that's when I find I can approach music in a better way and more effective way.
Yeah, for sure. I think you bring up a great point that, like, as we grow as people, we grow as writers, and our personal lives impact our songwriting. And that's definitely true with what you're describing.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it.
So, what is your songwriting process? So, when you have an idea to write a song, whether it be with collaborators or on your own, what do you start with, and how does this process typically unfold for you?
Well, I do usually like to collaborate quite a bit. I'm not as big of a fan of writing on my own. I get in my head a lot sometimes, and I just keep wanting to change things immediately. And I think when I work with somebody, it feels a lot more of a commitment, and it feels a lot more of an experience of its own. So the first thing we like to do. I mean, I did a lot of Zoom sessions throughout the pandemic. I'd say about like 150 maybe or 200 sessions of just talking with new people every time. And I think that the initial approach is just talking and chatting, especially during a time that was as tough as it was, through the pandemic, just chatting about how we're feeling and exploring what is something to be said that day. I think is important because sometimes, especially when you start creating music in a mass, it just in a very consistent approach and writing a lot of songs. Sometimes a song is just written because it had to be written rather than because it was truthful and it was natural. So I love to just have a conversation with whoever I'm writing with, and something will come up from that conversation that will spark an idea always, that will lead to then starting to write.
I love that. And I think that ties back to the quote too, with like being true. Because when you're having a genuine conversation with somebody, then whatever comes out of that is going to be genuine and true. And I'm exactly like you. Like every time I'm doing any kind of co-write with anybody, like even if the other person's like, okay, like I have this idea, let's just jump in and write. I'm like, wait, can we just talk for like a couple minutes and then like get to know each other? Because I think especially with collaborating, with what you were describing, like really talking to that person and getting to know them too, in order to be vulnerable and write these honest songs that you've been writing, you have to trust that person. So how have you found that? Like, do you think having a trusting connection with somebody is important for you as a songwriter?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think the most important thing I think is finding the people that you connect with the most, feel the most comfortable in. Because I mean, meeting new people every day. I mean, you can trust somebody, but getting to really know them doesn't take a couple hours. It really does take some time to just become friends and get to know each other. So I think it's really important to be surrounded by people that make you feel comfortable within yourself to say what you want to say and feel confident that you know it matters. So yeah, it's everything. Who you write with is literally everything.
Absolutely. So once you get an idea, usually from a conversation you're having with collaborators, for you, do you tend to start with the lyrics first or the melody or some kind of chord progression? What is the aspect of the song that you tend to start with?
So melody's always everything. I'm usually, or like 95% of the time, a very melodic person. I
Mm-hmm.
Lyrics are always secondary to me because I think that the way to truly express an emotion comes from a melody, in my opinion. So usually we start with a chord progression or something. The producers or the writers or whoever is in the room, a guitarist, whatever. I play the piano, just play some chords, and then melodies will come, and then something. We'll usually turn on the voice memo app just to not miss whatever comes out, and something will pop up, and we'll kind of pursue that further, and then set up some sort of demo production or something in that line of just maybe repeating a chord progression, and then we'll just start writing along it. And usually, I mean, sometimes when a concept isn't something that comes immediately, I think for some reason when a chord progression starts to play and a melody comes up, the meaning, at least for me, the subject of what I would like to sing about comes directly in connection with the melody for me.
That's so cool. I love that. I love hearing when songwriters start with the music and the melody because I'm like the opposite. I tend to start with the lyrics, especially because I do a lot of pop country crossover stuff and country is very story driven. And so I'm like a very lyric driven person. So it's so cool to hear how the melody inspires you. Do you think it's like the mood or the key or just like the vibe? Like, what about the melody itself allows you to find the concept of your songs?
I wish I could tell you. I have no idea. It's a natural, for me. It's a natural thing. I listen to something and I immediately know. I don't know how. I truly don't. But just it just feels right, and I don't
Yeah,
question it. I just go with it.
there you go.
But
Yeah.
no idea. I wish I could explain
No.
better.
No, literally though, like I feel like a lot that has to do with songwriting. It's so mysterious. Like we get these ideas for songs and we don't really know where they come from, and things feel more natural to some of us than different for others. So yeah, it's one big mystery. So over the past many years of writing, what are some of the biggest lessons you've learned as a songwriter?
I think it's important to not force a song to be done. I think if something doesn't come naturally, sometimes it's okay to just not pursue it. I think sometimes I've forced myself to write songs and finish them, and most of the time I just won't be happy with it because again, it didn't come from truth. It came from a need to fulfill that song, you know? So I think it's been important to be patient as well. And especially writing a lot through the pandemic, I've realized that, you know, certain days are not going to be good days and that's okay. And, yeah, and just be, yeah, I think patience is also, yeah, it's really important. Because I think when we start to force music to be created, that's when the magic kind of starts fading away. So, those have been some big lessons for me.
Perfect. I love it. I completely agree 100%. And so let's chat a little bit about Pretend, which is your current single. So, what was the inspiration behind this song?
The song actually came from, well, we wrote it during the pandemic at a time when we didn't really know how to feel. And I felt very numb that specific day. I was tired. I think I was sad, but again, I was having a hard time really understanding how I felt. So I thought it would be interesting to write about the feeling of pretending like we're okay when sometimes we should just sit down and deal with whatever we're going through. And, you know, that directly connected with a relationship. I think sometimes when breakups happen, the immediate reaction is to just, you know, get away from your emotions and go out and with your friends and party and try to forget and ignore how you truly feel. When I think sometimes it's important to, most of the time I'd say it's important to just deal with however you feel and sometimes sit on that emotion. So that song is a big lesson I think for me to and a big reminder to just, you know, deal with my emotions when I need to deal with them. And that song I think captures the, yeah, that message.
No, that's great. I think that's super universal and a message that a lot of people have to hear. And going back to you being so honest and vulnerable in your music, this is something that you were personally experiencing. But despite it being something you were going through yourself, it's something that many people can relate to. And I think that's awesome. Do you have any favorite lyrics from the song?
Let me think. Um, honestly, I mean, I love the connection of like that little line of like, I don't miss you at all. Like I'll pretend like I don't. I love that specific line. Like I don't miss you at all. Because I think even the melody of it feels like a question a little bit because you know, it's like I do actually miss her, but I'm gonna pretend here, and then I scream, I don't miss you at all. I don't miss you like that. I think that highlight that like comparison between these two blends in very well together, and I think it's very interesting to listen back to.
No, that's awesome. And I love how you mentioned how the melody kind of reflected what you were saying in your lyrics. And that's super cool. I love when artists do that. That's something I try to do as well. Is that something you're consciously aware of, like crafting the lyrics and melody to kind of go hand in hand?
I think that this has been something that I've realized more recently than later. I
Yeah.
think it's come naturally to me. Maybe from now on I'll be a little more conscious when writing, but I haven't actually written in a little while since we've had so many songs that have been prepped. I've been taking a bit of a break and just lived my life so that I can have now things to write about. But yeah, it hasn't been something that I've been conscious on, but I think now I will be a little more because I think it really does have an impact. So yeah, even with pretend like that, I think that came naturally, and now I listen back and I'm like, that's great. I'm so happy that I did that. You know, I don't know.
Yeah. No, you mentioned something that's a perfect lead into my next question. You said that you're taking a little break and now you're going to have things to write about. So that ties into the inspiration. So, what are some things? I know like you got song ideas from just conversations, but are there specific things in your life that you find inspire you often?
I mean, nature is a big one for me. I think just being with myself and walking and exploring, I think really bring out ideas naturally to me. I think just letting my mind, free, really does let it explore concepts to write about and things to sing about. So I think that's a big one, and I think just experiencing life of itself. I don't force myself to feel inspired. I just live my life, and I'm try to be as present as I can and be thankful for any little thing that happens, anything. And then the inspiration just comes naturally with it. But yeah, not something I try to force.
That's perfect. Yeah, I love how you mentioned a couple times being present. I think that whether you're a songwriter or not, I feel like nowadays that's something we should all try to do. Like, you can't change the past. Looking ahead to the future, there's no point in that. It's just being in the moment, because you never know what tomorrow brings and what tomorrow will hold and all that. So I really love how you have such a focus on, finding yourself and continuing to do that while also being present and just living.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad you agree.
Yeah,
It's a
I
very
think it's really
important thing.
important. It definitely is super, super important. So, just to wrap up here, looking back on your whole journey, you've definitely grown. So, what is ahead for you? What are you doing next on your journey, and how are you going to continue to grow as a writer?
I mean, I'm looking forward to traveling, hopefully a lot more. I think, the pandemic has really left me in a little bit stranded in my home, which I think has been really important for me. But I feel now finally very comfortable for the first time in my life with myself and confident with myself. So I think I'm really looking forward to traveling more and feeling inspired to write more and meeting, new people and experiencing new things. And that will lead to, I think, better music and a happier life. So yeah, I'm looking forward to keep growing. Nothing specific again. I mean, I'm very just happy to be here. So whatever brings tomorrow is what's meant to happen. So that's my outlook.
Perfect. Well, Sebastian, thank you so much for joining me. It was lovely having you. Can you share with everyone where they can find you on social and listen to your music?
Sure, it was lovely talking to you. I let me think. I mean, Sebastian Javier is my artist name. So if you Google that, I'm sure you'll find anything. I guess my Twitter is SEBTSB, and then most of my social media is just Sebastian Javier, Sebastian Javier. So yeah, you'll find me anywhere. Pretty
Awesome.
easy.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining me. This has been awesome. Listeners, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Right on Track with Sebastian. And of course, until next time, stay
Stay
right
right
on
on
track.
track.